Hello and welcome to the first episode of the South Yorkshire Women's Football Podcast. I'm Ollie Pallas.
And I'm Railton. I think we'll get straight into things. Episode 1 today, we're joined by Rotherham United Women's Manager Adam Rawlings, who discusses a wide range of topics, including the season just gone.
I was just so emotional, like second versus third. If we won, we could potentially push FFC for the league. If we lost it, then, you know, all hell breaks loose.
Adam also delved into his own personal stories.
I was assaulted by two lads in a bar.
And he also discussed any potential plans of Rotherham United women moving into the New York Stadium.
Long-time ambition, yeah, I would absolutely love that to be the case.
Before we get into that though, let's just tell you a little bit about us and what's to come over the next few weeks on our podcast. So, of course, I'm Ollie, I'm the host. This is Lewis, he's my co-host. We've worked together a couple of times on different podcasts. And over the next few weeks, we've got lots to look forward to. Of course, today's episode with Adam, we've got an episode coming up with the Barnsley Women's CEO, Steve Maddock, and lots more to come as well after that. So stay tuned. But for now, let's get stuck into this first episode. Hello and welcome to the first episode of the South Yorkshire Women's Football Podcast, brought to you by myself, Ollie Pallas, and my co-host this afternoon, Lewis. Hi, Lewis. You all right?
How are we doing, Ollie? You okay?
Yeah, fine, thank you. We've been very kindly joined by our first guest of the podcast, Adam Rawlings from Rotherham United Women. Adam, thanks for coming on. Just sort of introduce yourself, who you are, and sort of a little bit about you before we get started here.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be here, so thanks for having me. And you know, what you guys are doing with this pod for our game is brilliant, so thanks for doing this entirely, actually. I am the head of football at Rotherham United Women's Football Club. And first team manager there, so that's predominantly what people might recognise me for. Before that, I've been in the women's game for like 9-10 years now, so yeah, the women's game is what I've been in for a long period of time. So yeah, that's what people would recognise me for.
Yeah, sorry, Ollie.
Sorry.
You mentioned I have like first team manager. I don't think there's really got to be much explanation behind that one, but head of football for Rotherham United Women as well. Just what does that role entail?
Yeah, it's a good question. In this period of the season now, at the back end, it's more prevalent than maybe during, but ultimately we are responsible for the performance of the team and the club as a whole, so encompassing our under-21s and the pathway from our ETC into the senior setup. So throughout the season, that's primarily my focus, and to support the staff in doing that. Other than that, at this point in the season, we now look at our sponsorship packages and look at how we can connect with our partners, making sure the awards nights and all those things are recognised, and we invite the right people, so all of our sponsors get an invite, all of our partners, and making sure that we connect with the right people and broaden our reach in the community and further afield.
This pod is going to focus more on you as a person, as a man who sort of your journey into coaching. So I mean, you've mentioned there what you're doing at the moment, but we'll take it right back to the start in terms of your first getting started in coaching. You went to Hallam to do a sports coaching degree at uni, and then just talk us through your sort of first steps getting involved into coaching after that, sort of what you did, and take us a little bit through your pathway up to where we are now, if you don't mind.
Yeah. If I rewind a little bit further than that, I stopped playing at 16, so I was very aware that I wasn't going to be good enough to make it. And I'm a sort of person, if I know when to sort of quit. But I did the very basics really well, and I understood a lot about the game and how I wanted it to be played, and took a lot of inspiration from a coach that I had, Gary Hyam, at my old club in Loughborough. And he was like a real motivator for me. So I stepped into coaching straight away as a 16-year-old, taking our under-12s, and Graham Herring at the time at my old football club allowed me to step into a managing position of that under-12s team. And that was really the biggest insight to me. And then, you know, fast forward a few years, we come to uni. I was the assistant manager with the Uni of Sheffield women's first team. I coached the under-16s team at Ecclesall Rangers, who were like a grassroots team at the time. and then the Hallam under 23s, Hallam development team. Sorry. So balancing a lot of football at uni was what I loved to do, and that's where I learned a lot of my trade, if you like. But that learning never really stops.
Is it a sort of specific, just general love for football? Is there something in women's football that you see that you're really passionate about? So what is it that's driven you to women's football rather than perhaps men's football?
Yeah. Do you know what? People ask me this all the time because men's presence in the women's game is a little bit uneasy at times. Because, if I was a recruiter looking to fill a women's football managerial role, I would want to put a female into that capacity. So, as a male in the game, you can sort of sometimes feel as an imposter. But I stepped into the women's game because I knew that I could contribute more, and that's the easiest thing that I can give you. My experience as a player isn't strong enough to advise the lads on how to play, and likewise, some of the girls that I've coached are exceptional. I don't tell them how to play, but like when to play and what triggers to read and all those things. So I can offer more in that respect. And do you know what? Women players are actually a lot more attentive when you're talking to them, right? So they can soak it up a little bit more, and they ask questions, they're inquisitive, and all of those things. So yeah, I could get further in the women's game than I can in the men's game, that's for sure.
Just looking at your career in total, it looks like you've had to balance a lot of roles at the same time. You were mentioning there, was it like 2 or 3 roles while at the Uni of Sheffield? How do you find time for that, to be honest?
It's a great question. And you sacrifice quite a bit. I watched something yesterday, and it was that Andrew Flintoff film, and he actually worded it pretty perfectly, because sport will take a lot from people in terms of time and effort and sleep deprivation, all those things. But actually what it does give you is like a sense of purpose, and you can compete, and whether you compete with yourself, whether you compete with other people, however you want to frame that. Sport has always been that, so I've always found time. And at the minute we train at Rotherham, we won't finish till 9:30. We'll stand around for staff chatting about it, reflecting, selecting teams, all those things, till maybe 10, gone 10. And you have to remember, you got to wake up for your full-time job tomorrow. So you just do, I guess, is the easy answer. But it gives you that purpose to do it, so it's pretty easy. I
suppose it's one of them things where if you sort of actually sit back and think about it, the endless hours that you put into the game, it really does make you think, but yeah, I'm in very deep here. But I think if you enjoy it so much, that just doesn't feel like anything, to be honest. It's sort of, the enjoyment's there, so you're more than happy to put in as many hours as possible for you to reach your goals in women's football.
100%, yeah. And do you know what? Like in the last few years, like I've been through some fairly traumatic events, and my mental stability hasn't been where I would expect it to be, or where people would maybe perceive it to be. So that sense of purpose has been really key to dragging you through those moments. And now, at Rotherham we have a staff team of like 9 staff outside of the 21s. If you include that, we have a bigger team than that. So you have a lot of people to connect with, like-minded people, which is brilliant, and I love doing that. That's why I love doing things like this. But also we have people that are there to shoulder the burden with you and bring you on a journey with them. And so it sounds so cliche and so soppy, but that's what makes it. And now if I went to a football club, I have pure easy examples of, this is the analysis that we've done, this is the sponsorship packages that we created, and the partnerships that we were able to create. And anyone that sort of asks me about future prospects and stuff, I have those clear examples because of the hours that you put in. You can't do that off of, wait till I get a full-time role in football and then, roll from there. You have to create that yourself in these sort of opportunities that you have now.
I suppose there's almost sort of as the head of football and first team manager at Rotherham, there's almost a necessity that you really have to just show that you're aware of all this, because then that trickles down through the players, through the various club staff, like you mentioned there. It just really does entail just how important that role is for yourself.
Yeah, do you know what? I would say a good 85% of both roles in terms of being a first team manager and head of football is large partly acting. So you'll go into games where you go, this is going to be a tough test, but you show and you give a sense that actually there's no doubt we're going to win this game. It's the same with head of football. Staff members come and go, and you replace people, and some people are harder to do that, and so that can shake things up, and you have to be steady in your approach, and you have to provide solidity, and the only way you do that is by acting, because I'm a human being, and you're affected by those things as well. When you see 3 staff members leave, that's not easy, and so you just have to find a way around that and maintain belief, because that's what your camp is built off.
We talked a little bit about your sort of journey so far. If you mentioned you had something that you went through that's shaped how you are now, and just, if you don't mind, could you sort of elaborate a little bit on what you sort of went through, and how you've over time, perhaps, I don't know, sort of maybe used football to get through it and sort of be the person you are today, speaking to us?
Yeah, so so in 2021 I was assaulted by 2 lads in a bar who glassed me. If you see the scar here on the side of my head, it almost took out my eye actually. So there were like 3 or 4 scars in and around my eyelid as well. Unbelievably unprovoked, but it was traumatic for a person that was super confident. Without being arrogant, like I was a pretty high achiever, like I'd never failed a test or anything like that, So I'd not really seen that side of life, and to be thrown off like that, these guys get 6 months inside and come back out and crack on, whereas you live with them for a long time. And for a male to walk outside with massive scars on your face, and I think that's why the Freddie Flintoff film really resonated with me, because he has scars, like he's way worse than me, like don't get me wrong, but his facial scars are very impactful in the same way that mine were, but then to be a male to walk outside and own that is hard. Then to walk into a women's dressing room is like near on impossible. So that took me a while, for sure, but it was football that brought me back around to, okay, this is who you are, and when I go to football, compete with me, I don't care about opposition. I want my team to portray what we do, and I compete with myself. I don't care about opposition. That's my approach to it. But football gives me the purpose to, it's very tangible, right? You either win or you lose. If you draw, it's probably a loss. You know what I mean?
Feels like a loss.
Unless you play like, Man United away.
Yeah.
Fair dues. So, like, you'll get a sense of, even, some losses we've had this year, we lost 2-0 to Huddersfield Town. Huddersfield Town are a tier above us, vastly more experienced in that domain than we are. They've won the County Cup like 3 times in a row. Sheffield United actually beat them this year, which is brilliant. So we lost 2-0. We were 1 kick away in the game. We were through 1-on-1 with the keeper, our striker misses. From that, they go and counter-attack. So we could be 1-1 going into penalties, and penalties is anyone's guess. From there, they go and score 2-0. All right, fine. But the performance we produced was exceptional, and you have to be exceptional to compete with that sort of budget, let alone anything else. So, even when you lose, you've won to some degree or you've lost, and football is very tangible like that, and that's how my brain works. So, I used that for sure, and I've been really lucky. Like, our form, our results at Rossington, at Rotherham has been really good. Had we lost every game, maybe it wouldn't have provided that same purpose. But I back the team that I have around me and to work really hard to produce them results. So that we definitely deserve them, that's for sure.
When you say that football got your confidence back, was that a gradual thing, or was it you went straight into a role and you're like, I'm a new me, I finally, I don't know, found my purpose after that?
Yeah, I wish that was the case, that's for sure. Confidence is like not it's like a river to me. Like, it will meander off, but it will always come back round to some sort of flow. So you'll have games. So we had one at Chesterfield where I was just so emotional. Like, it was second versus third. If we won, we could potentially push FFC for the league. If we lost it, then, you know, all hell breaks loose. And yeah, so when you have a game like that and you make emotional decisions instead of composed decisions, that's when you're like, oh, your confidence is rock bottom. And your players know that. Like, my players are not daft. I made mistakes in that game, that's for sure. You know, the players weren't saints. Like, we were all off that day. But you shoulder that a lot more as a manager, so you have to be careful because it can bury you in the same respects that it could pick you up.
In terms of not only your teams, but the people that you work around, how inspiring are they to you in terms of the sort of, I mean, obviously your team are very high achieving. You sound like you sort of strive for high achievements yourself. So how does your team and the people around you, and how does it all sort of come together, and how inspired are you by the people that you work alongside and work with?
We all just know our part, I think, and that's super important, that you all feel super valued. So like Craig, our attacking coach, is really easy. So he knows that his role is to support those attackers, and if we are underperforming in that area, he knows what to do. And they are vastly more experienced in their areas than I am, and I just have to soak it up, and I have to organise them so that it's like putting cogs in a machine, right? And then I have to provide a structure, and hopefully my idea of playing is good, and touch wood, I think it's okay. But you have to allow people to contribute to that. You know, it's not like my word is God's law. I have to allow them to come into that and express themselves and give their opinions as well. Some of them I'll use my experience to come back and say, okay, I hear what you're saying, but this is what I'm going to go with, and this is why I'm going to do it. But you have to allow them that space to do it, and do you know what? They're just brilliant. Like, I couldn't do it without them. So yeah, the work they put in is as much as me, that's for sure.
And the team as well. So how are you inspired by such a high achieving team who've done so well this season, and teams previously as well?
Yeah, I just love our players. I think they're brilliant, and for all of their, I don't know, they'll give you a headache for sure, and that's the nature of football, whether you're in the men's game or women's game. But they all absolutely die for football, and I say that like Neil Warnock, but like they love it, right? And they wouldn't turn up week in, week out, and they wouldn't probe questions, they wouldn't ask you how to improve if they didn't. And the camaraderie that creates is brilliant, and you have to hone in on that as much as you possibly can. I said to the players fairly recently, like, we expect high standards from them, but those high standards are mirrored in everything that we do. So the enjoyment part comes from the players. If they didn't perform, we're talking about confidence, right? My confidence would be right on the floor because they're the ones that do it. Likewise, I wouldn't enjoy it because they don't turn up. If they turned up marching in a line and deadly silent, that's no good to anyone. So like the atmosphere that they create and the camaraderie they create, and yeah, it's what we're here for, right? I want them to be the best players we possibly can, and the great run that we've been on means that it's probably going to be really hard to keep hold of some players. Okay, that's brilliant. That's a result for us. Like, if you're going to go and get paid a full-time wage to go and play football, go do it. Like, I want to be the champion of you. And yes, I would love to keep you in the building, and I will absolutely do everything I can. But if I can't, then fair dues. And that's our role.
I think that's probably an issue that, well, not necessarily an issue, but just something that people who are, involved with women's football clubs in the local area will certainly resonate with. A run of 5-6 decent games, maybe you're an attacker has went on a very good goal scoring run.
Yeah.
The next week they're playing for someone else. How do you deal with that as a coach?
Difficult, and this is where the acting comes in, right? Because we enter pre-season now, and pre-season is it's like a circus. People just do crazy things. So players will go and trial at like tier 7 teams, and not to disrespect them, but like you're going to drop down 2 tiers and you could get into our team. So I don't understand that. So yeah, pre-season is just a wild thing, and you have to be a good actor, because you have got to be that, and if you're not, then you'll quickly get found out, because everyone will go, we're losing this and this player, oh my god. So you have to be a good actor, but you also have to be composed. You know that nobody, not even me, is irreplaceable in this game, and you can replace people. You don't want to. I absolutely don't want to. If I could keep all my players, I would. I'd absolutely love that. But everyone is replaceable ultimately, and you will find a better solution. So yeah, composure and being a good actor is the way forward.
Is it ever a difficult conversation that can come up with a player who either wants to move up, or, I mean, you mentioned there players potentially dropping down the leagues to trial, etc. If a player's moving on to either, in your opinion, a sideways step or going down, is that something where you'd say, in fact, I don't really see why you want to do that, so I think you should stay here?
Yeah, it's always a hard balance. Like, I would never sell the club to somebody. Like, if you're in our building now and you've played with us and you go and trial somewhere else, then we're not good enough. So, and that's fine to have that. If that's your decision, that's your decision. You want more, and a lot of them will play higher or want to play higher, so fair dues. But there's a balance between having that hard line, and I have to try my best around that, because I try and hold a firm line. But there's a balance between that and pitching to keep people in the building. And like I said, if I could keep every one of my players, I absolutely would. Usually if players drop down the leagues, there's a financial thing going on, which is more and more evident now. So yeah, that's usually the case. So yeah, we'll just have to ride it out. But each player we have a different relationship with each player. So those conversations happen all the time. Hopefully not this week, but next week.
How do you go about those conversations? I mean, we'll talk about sort of the future, the club's ambitions and your ambitions going forward shortly, but just based on what you said there, how does a head of football go about conversations with players for moving forward at the club, or perhaps moving on to pastures new, as people like to call it?
Yeah, do you know, it's really easy for me to sit here and go, you just be honest with people. But actually what you have to do is speak to them about their ambition. So, we have a lot of senior players that are coming to the back end of their career, and they'll tell you that themselves. So you have to figure out what is in their interests and how they want to move forward to gauge the best decision for them. And so I then go, okay, so I'm not going to offer you minutes, because I can't do that. I'm not a psychic. I'm also not going to offer you like a lot of finances, because again, we're not a club that's in that position. So that rules out a lot of teams, right? So you play lower down, you're guaranteed 90 minutes because you're a bloody good player. You play higher up, the financial reward is there, right? So you have to, address them as a person and see, right, I know that your life is in Rotherham. I know that your position is this, you're at this part of your career. If you're a young person, okay, well, we're the ones that invested in you, right? And we gave you the opportunity when, maybe not nobody saw you, but like we were the ones that backed you to the hills, and we'll continue to do that.
It sounds almost like a model that a lot of, I know we're quickly talking about the men's game, but it sounds like a model that a lot of professional teams are starting to adopt, is that sort of investing in youth and the sort of belief that they can instill at a club like.
Yeah, I think there's a very big balance. I think our average age this year in one of the games was like 19.2, right, which is by far and away the youngest in the league. We have exceptionally young, exceptional players that are able to step into this setting and tear it up. But we also have to caveat that with the experience, right? So you're always making these sort of decisions in terms of retain, release, and all these things based on that balance, which is going to be it's always the hard part. So yeah, but it's definitely a model that we've tried to adopt, and we have a really good relationship now with the ETC and the pathway into the 21s and all those things. So hopefully we are a club that's moving in the right direction.
I wanted to quickly ask you before we move on to the future about the challenges of finances, because as you talked about, there's a big disparity between clubs having quite a lot of money or a significant bigger amount of money, if that makes sense. So what, in terms of the challenges of finances, keeping a hold of players if they're attracted to move up or wherever, what's that like, and how do you deal with it?
With great difficulty is the honest answer. Like you work really hard to develop a team, an ethos and a culture, and ultimately that's, deserted for money, and that's fine. That's how the game is. As a club at Rotherham, we are definitely moving towards that, and we will be in a position for sure to be able to compete with clubs to an extent. So that's the positive news, and it drives us to do more for our players, and I think that's a good side of it. But it's one of those things that you can't. A lot of clubs will promise certain things. I will only promise something that I can deliver on. So if it's a case of, goal bonuses, all of those things, maybe not. But I will only promise certain things to people that I can deliver on. But your budget's your budget, right? And I don't have the same as Wolves, Huddersfield, all those teams that have such big backing. We are moving towards that, but we're not there yet. So we'll be closer, and we will compete with them in certain areas, and hopefully my budget one day is that big.
I think, correct if I'm wrong, but maybe one of the sort of the ways for the club to reach that level potentially comes down to where you play. Do you feel like going into the New York Stadium is the natural next step for you to reach them levels, and is that also a viable option? Is there a likelihood of that or not?
I would love for that to be the case. What I would say is that we have the second best pitch in Rotherham at Parkgate. Parkgate is a brilliant ground for us. But long-term ambition, I would absolutely love that to be the case. Ultimately, we have to demonstrate to the clubs that we generate the crowds, we have the interest, and we have the pull of the people to be able to do that. And we are making good stead in that. So like our crowds at the start of the season were near on about 100 people, right? Which is, a picnic. Whereas now we're almost at like 400 people. So we have to continue that traction. We have to continue to monitor those things, and hopefully we'll get there. Certainly in the near future, I'd love for us to be based there.
In terms of the season as a whole then, finished third, looking ahead, sort of two questions in one, but looking ahead to next season, the goal is obviously promotion, I assume?
Yeah, for sure. I mentioned to you guys briefly about every team in the last 6 years, every team that's gone up hasn't lost more than one game. When we took over, the team was second bottom, having lost 2, drawn 2. So you can't help those things, but you can definitely rectify it, and we did to some degree. I think we could have finished second, but like I said, we had a pretty poor game against Sheffield, so that's how it was in the end. But yeah, that has to be our ambition. We are a big club in South Yorkshire, so we need to replicate that in the women's game as well. So yeah, to be in the title fight is really important. There's a lot of strong competition for next year, so I'm not delusional about that either. But yeah, for sure we have to be promoted next year.
Do you think the league will be as difficult next season? Obviously we've got Sheffield FC.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Do you think you'll sort of make your players aware that it's almost like 2 defeats or bust sort of thing. Do you have to get that forward to them and just be straight up? If you lose, not that's necessarily a failure, but it certainly doesn't help along the way of if you're trying to go for promotion.
Yeah, well, when I first came in as head of football, I was obviously not on the ground with the coaching staff and all those things. But my first sort of speech, if you like, to the players was, look, this is a league that is near on impossible to get out of. You have to be impeccable, you have to be invincible, and those 2 things you haven't been so far because you've drawn 2, lost 2. So the players are very aware of that, and I don't really wear my, keep my cards to my chest. Like, I'll just play them. So the players are well aware of it, and they know the standards that it takes to get there. And we've almost been there this season. With the start that we had to the season, we knew that we had a better opportunity to give the younger players experience, because now as you go into the next season, you all of a sudden have a team full of experienced, to some degree, young players. So that helps you in the long run, which is why, we end up losing 2-3 games, but that plays a part.
Yeah, I mean, you suggest that the younger players coming through, developing more experience. The fact that you're thinking about that already, does that suggest that you're already planning for next season?
Yeah, for sure. We have one game left, so we always have to look onto it. So I constantly switch hats all the time. So I go to head of football, I think about partnerships, sponsorships, all those things, and line up these meetings in the evenings where I can get away with them. And then you put your manager hat on, you go and do training, and you're trying to build towards a performance that warrants winning games of football. So yeah, we always have one ear to the ground on what's happening for next season, for our players, for other players, for other clubs, and you have to do that, else you get left behind.
And in terms of Rotherham United women's future goals, because you've clearly got plenty of aspirations for the club in general, it's clear that you're around for the long term. Is Rotherham United, the club, sort of there to match them goals? Are they able to give you that boost up? Because I think at the end of the day, you need the full club's backing to do that, don't you?
Yeah. I think we're definitely working towards becoming closer with the club. We're really close with the trust, but that's a different relationship to what we have with the club. So we have to continue to work at that. And I think we have to just make small steps towards that. It's not going to be something that happens overnight. If we generate the crowds, if we generate the performances, if we can get promoted, all of these things say to the club, you're daft not to have a really strong relationship with us, right? And the more and more clubs that back their women's teams will then become a lot more prevalent, and all of those things. So we have to do our bit while still building the relationship with the club, because it's not easy for a club that's had a men's team for decades to then go, you've got another team now, and you have to back them in the same way. So yeah, it's not easy to change that narrative. But hopefully we can do it with performances, with crowds, and all those things.
In terms of your ambitions for the future, do you see yourself? So I'm not going to talk about jobs here. That's not my place to talk about. But in terms of yourself, just solely focusing on. I know you've got one game to focus. That's a big game to concentrate on, which we'll talk about in a second. But you're focusing just on women's football. Is that something that you're focused on in the here and now, or would you ever sort of move back into perhaps men's football as well, having built up this sort of confidence and a sort of coaching manual, I suppose, if that makes your own style, perhaps? Yeah,
it's a question I actually get asked quite a bit, but I still enjoy the women's game. So whilst I enjoy it, then I'll stay in it, because that is what ultimately football won't give you enough for you to sacrifice your life, and I've said that continuously throughout my time. So you have to enjoy it, number one, and ultimately, let me get it right, no one enjoys losing, so don't lose. But yeah, I would love for whatever capacity I was in just to be around and immersed in football as much as I possibly can be, because there are so many. There are difficult people in football, first and foremost, but there are some brilliant people, and I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of them. So I just want to continue to do that, and as much as I possibly can, if that makes sense.
Is it a love for football, or is it sort of a dedication to wanting to help the progression of players, whether that's male or female?
Yeah.
Or is it both?
The easy answer is a bit of both. I would add another third caveat to it, that is just a want to compete and win. I don't know a single person that doesn't love winning, you know. So I think if you find something that like loads of people do high rocks now, like I can never do that. But it's a sense of competing, right? It's a sense of winning, and even if you smash your own time, you've done pretty well. So I think that's the third and most prevalent feeling in football that I have, is this real need to compete and to have people on the journey with you to compete for you, essentially, right? I don't kick a ball. So to have people on the journey that do that with you and to create that is the best part.
Yeah, that wraps up the first episode of the South Yorkshire Women's Football Podcast. Adam, a big thank you for agreeing to come on, for answering in such detail and giving us such great content to use. Lewis, thank you for your first appearance, and
Thank you for your first appearance as well.
No, it's all right.
Make sure you remember who was the first guest.
We certainly will. So stay tuned for more episodes coming out over the next few days and weeks to come. But thank you very much for listening to this first episode, and Adam, thank you again for coming on to join us.